Hi everyone, I'm going to show you something you won't see anywhere else, and that's a simple do-it-yourself way to add a center channel speaker to a TV stereo system. The main reason to do this is to get clearer voices in TV shows and movies so that speech is easier to understand. A center channel puts the source of the sound closer to the actors' faces. This will make dialogue stand out from the background. The center channel is especially valuable if your stereo speakers can't be placed perfectly for sound. Maybe because you have a tight space, or if they just look better in another place. The method I'll show you will work for a vintage stereo system like this one, or a low-cost system like this one with one of these mini amplifiers and a pair of Dayton Audio speakers. Or even something much higher end, like these KEF Q Concerto Meta speakers, paired with the really good and powerful Aiyima T20 and A20, which are complementary pre- and power amplifiers. Any home theatre center channel speaker will work for this, but it is best to select one of appropriate price and performance to the stereo system that you're using. The electronics to combine and sum together the left and right channels are as simple as it gets, and the step-by-step method to build the combiner box that I'm going to show you now requires no electronics knowledge and no soldering skills. It is important to note that you can't just use a simple Y cable to do what the combiner box does. If you connect a Y cable between left and right, it will create a short circuit between them, which will sound bad and it could damage the outputs. I will be using Y cables though for connecting the combiner box to the stereo. This is everything we're going to need, and I'll link to all these things in the video description. We're going to start with two 1000 ohm resistors. Now these things are made by the billions and they are very cheap. We just peel them off from the tape like this. So we take this resistor and we just want to bend over about 1/4 inch of the wire at the end, just like that. And we do that for both ends of two resistors. This is a 4-position electrical terminal block, and I'm going to number the positions 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'll put a piece of tape next to position 1 so I keep it straight. So we loosen up the screws and screw resistor into position number 2, and just push the other end of that resistor. It's easier with pliers. Push the other end of that resistor into position number 4. Don't screw it down just yet. Take the second resistor and connect it to position number 1. Now we need to make sure that these two wires don't touch at this end. We can put a little piece of tape between them if we want to. So there's the tape. Now we push the second resistor leg into position number 4 and we can tighten the screw. Now we take a little 2" by 3" plastic box and we mark just little dots right next to position number 1, position number 2, and position number 4, just like that. Now use a pin vise and just punch through where you've marked each of those dots. Now enlarge those holes with a 1/8 drill bit, and be careful you don't drill into your fingers. And then use a step drill to make these holes big enough to put this end of these wires through. If you don't have a step drill, I'll link to where you can get one. The hole needs to be about 1/4 inch, so we'll use the 1/4 inch step on this step drill. And it should look like that, and the wire goes through nice and easily. These cables have an RCA plug at one end and bare wires at the other end. Now the ends of these wires are stripped, pre-stripped, but they're not really long enough to go into the terminals. So what we'll do is we'll cut off these tinned bits and we'll strip the wires back to about 3/8 of an inch. And we can cut them with a pair of scissors if you don't have a wire stripper. Now to strip the wire with scissors, you need to nick it all the way around. All the way around. And then once you've done that, it should just break off. Should look like that. I want to mark a couple of screw holes for this terminal block, and I need these resistors all the way to the black back wall. And we line the terminals up roughly with these holes. And we use the pin vise again to make those holes and enlarge those holes to 1/8 inch. Now I just push the stripped wires through these holes. So I've arranged these wires in order like this, and we take the first wire and we connect the red wire to the terminal position 1. Now the red wire of the second cable goes to terminal position 2, like that. And the red wire of the third cable goes to terminal position 4. And we connect all 3 black wires to terminal position 3. Tighten down hard on those so it's nice that all 3 wires are clamped nicely together. So when we're done, it should be looking just like this. We can remove this marker tape. Now we put the terminal block into the box. It's best to push rather than pull because we don't need to strain the wires at this point. Now we just use an M3 12mm screw and go through the first hole that we made and put a M3 washer and nut on the other end and put the second screw in and tighten that one too. Now we just make sure all these wires are tight, which they are. Now we can use these tie wraps around these cables just to make sure that they're strain relieved and they don't pull the wires out if you tug on them. And you want them to be snug up against this wall, like that. And it should all look like that. And I like to put a strain relief on the other side as well, so that they can't be pushed through. So the last thing I want to do is mark this output cable. So this is the odd man out cable, which has its red wire connected to position number 4. So I mark this with a white cable tie like this one. So that's our white cable. Last thing we do is just shut the box up and we're done. This is our combiner box. To show you how to use the combiner box, I'll connect to a stereo that uses a small, inexpensive mini amp and a pair of Dayton Audio Classic B65 speakers. I'll use a Dayton Audio C40 center channel speaker, which will be an excellent match. I'm connecting this to the TV using the RCA outputs of an HDMI ARC adapter. This gives us a center channel for TV only and leaves the stereo mix for music sources totally unaffected. If your TV has RCA audio outputs, you can get the same result by connecting directly to those. Step 1 is to connect an audio cable to the input of the stereo. This stereo's input has a 3.5mm socket, so we'll need a 3.5mm to RCA cable. Plug the red side of the other end of the cable into the red socket of an RCA Y cable like this one, and plug the single end of the Y into the red socket of the ARC adapter or TV. Repeat these steps for the white RCA plugs. The other red and white sockets on the Y cables connect to the input side of the combiner box. In this case, it doesn't matter which input is connected to red and which one to white. Connect the single output side of the combiner box to the white input on the mini amp that we're using for the center channel. And then connect the left side speaker output to the center channel speaker. For higher power and higher quality systems, this amplifier, the Aiyima A07 Max, has a party trick. There's a switch on the bottom that puts the amp into mono mode. In this mode, the stereo amplifiers are bridged together to double the power that you'd get with only a single stereo channel. To use mono mode, first set the stereo mono switch to mono. Then connect the combiner box output to the left side input, the white one, of the amp. Then connect the center channel speaker wires to the 2 red speaker terminals like this. Once the audio cables are in place, use an HDMI cable to connect the input of the ARC adapter to the HDMI port labeled ARC on the TV. Now, when we turn on the TV, we get 3-channel sound controlled by the TV remote control.
One doctor, pharmacist, and cardiologist recommended Beat Brand for heart health support. Find out your first order at livehuman.com.
If you like this video, give me a thumbs up and subscribe. If you buy anything from the links in the description, it won't cost you any more, but the small commission helps to support the channel and is very much appreciated. Thanks for watching, everyone.